All right. Well, hi, hello, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Jess,
And I'm Mackenzie.
and we are about to get into a very exciting webinar with all of you in just a few seconds here. But Mackenzie and I wanted to go through a few of the housekeeping points that we think will help you get the most out of our time here together today. So, Mackenzie, where should we start?
First, I want to draw your attention over to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, post all of your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. In fact, why don't you find the tab right now and give it a little test run by saying hi, hello, hola, whatever salutation you want to put out to the community today. And as a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the webinar. Don't forget that a browser refresh should clear up most of the common issues. But if your slides or audio aren't working, feel free just to shoot us a message in the questions tab and our team will be happy to help.
All right, well, the questions tab was a great place to start because the next stop on our guided tour of your audience console is the handouts tab. Do spend some time in the handouts tab. There are so many wonderful resources and takeaways from our conversation here today. You are going to want those to follow up on this, I promise you. So go over to the handouts tab right now, start clicking on those links, download those PDFs, open those tabs, make sure you've got those set aside. Don't go anywhere just yet. Those are for later after we wrap the webinar, because right now you're going to want to stay with us. Not only do we have a very cool webinar coming your way, we also have a prize giveaway that we want you to have in mind, because that is coming at you at the end of our session. So we will have a $250 prize giveaway at the end of our webinar. Now, all winners do need to be here live and present at the webinar, and all winners must meet the prize terms and conditions. Those are linked for you in the handouts tab that we were just chatting about. So you can head on over to the handouts tab, click and scroll down, and you will find the full T's and C's waiting for you there.
Okay, Jess, I think that's everything for the housekeeping. Let's get this webinar rolling.
Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Phil Kurz, contributing editor at TV Tech Magazine and tvtech.com. The story of video production, post-production, and distribution is continuous improvement in quality and operational efficiencies. The latest chapter in this tale is the emergence of virtualized tools running on the cloud or in an on-prem data center that perform functions in software that up until recently ran on dedicated devices or individual computers. Today we focus on virtualized playout, and here to brief us on the latest developments is Amagi co-founder and CEO Baskar Subramanian. Amagi offers CloudPort, a software as a service tool to power linear and video on-demand playout. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you that we'll be taking your questions throughout today's presentation, so please submit them as they come to mind. With all that said, let's get started. Baskar, thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much, Phil.
When people talk about virtualized, the mind immediately goes to the cloud, most often the public cloud. What about a private cloud or a data center? How do they factor in?
Yeah, if you look at it from a virtualization, from a technicality standpoint, is any infrastructure where the hardware has a virtual layer on top of it, which allows us to be able to share the cores across multiple different software components, is virtualization. So I think there's no, given the new tooling and the infrastructure that's evolved in the software world, be it the likes of Kubernetes and others that have come in, fundamentally, is changing the way we see between cloud or a private data center. All of them would look the same. There is a lot of unification happening in terms of this base infrastructure so that you become physically independent of where it actually runs, the software runs. And that's been the progression in software that we continue to see.
So how would you assess where broadcasters stand today with adopting virtualized playout?
I think it's a journey that people are going through, and the journey has multiple different aspects to consider. Large part of what we're seeing I think the directional line for everybody is that they need to go into a virtualized infrastructure to handle all their playout needs in the future. I think that's a kind of a given response that I'm getting from all the CTOs and head of operations and head of engineering of the large broadcast companies. The question is when, rather than whether we would do it or not. So that decision is clear. Now, the decision of when is determined by a couple of things. One is when is their hardware refresh cycles coming in? And what will be the total cost of ownership structure that will evolve over time from a virtualization standpoint? Those are the key decisions that our customers are really going through the process of understanding. And everybody's in different parts of the part of it. So I know customers who are actually stretching or sweating their hardware through buying hardware components from eBay, literally, to kind of stretch it to a point where they can actually get that working, to customers who come back and said, you know what, we're going all in and trying to kind of move to a virtualized playout infrastructure because that's the future of what they see from a total cost of ownership coming down and the flexibilities for the business that can actually deliver today. But the challenge again, yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, I was just trying to kind of talk about saying what is that, and the mechanics of how you go about is as well as something that our customers are starting to think about. Is there are customers who would like to do all in initially, to customers who would want to start off with disaster recovery first, so that you kind of vet yourself into the virtualized world, look at how it works, how we feel comfortable about the whole thing, then move to lower tier 3, tier 4 channels, then maybe do some of your fast content and channels, then move to really tier 1 live sports and news content that you'd like to kind of. So these are just about the way of strategy of how to do. But the bigger message is that I think virtualized playout is the future for the broadcast industry, and it's a question of time and where you are in the evolution cycle that people are taking decisions on today.
So you've said that broadcasters are very interested in taking this step, but they're all at different parts of the journey, depending on each individual broadcaster. Do you see many running virtualized playout in parallel with existing channel playout to sort of do a proof of concept before committing fully?
Yes, I think that's an important part of the process, Phil, both in terms of getting comfortable with the virtualized infrastructure itself, not even the playout feature sets and others. Do we really feel a remote environment of either a data center, private data center, or a cloud infrastructure, which can actually drive this? How comfortable are you from an operating standpoint? Because again, if you look at it historically, broadcasters had their own data centers, pretty much hugging the hardware, literally, when operating it, to a point where you're going to have devices and software running thousands of miles away. And how does it kind of work in your environment? That everybody's going through some sort of a POC process. As I told you, disaster recovery is an easy way to solve this problem, because people think, okay, DR is a great way for me to experiment this without having to kind of put in or go all in fundamentally to start with. The other is really doing all the new workloads that's coming in, be it the fast workloads that are coming in, or I want to do single live events for my OTT platform or the older platforms that I have. All of those are fundamentally the right targets for you to start the whole cloud journey or the virtualized playout journey, depending on how we go. So that's the way we're seeing our customers reacting to this.
So one of our viewers, Terrence Lowe, has a couple of questions. Let's start off with this one. Does Amagi help customers with migrating from their existing solutions that are already on-prem or in the cloud? And if so, how?
So fundamentally, all our customers are moving through this process of moving their workloads from an on-prem to the cloud environment, for example. So as a company, what we do is really, it's all-in infrastructure. We come in and identify what are your requirements, business requirements, map it to the toolkits that you need, and eventually move not only content, but all the workflows, the ingest of live streams to bring in the operating environments, integrate it with your scheduling systems, traffic systems, everything else that you want from a monitoring capability, all of that, and actually bring it to the cloud. That's what we do. We do soup to nuts, literally, for our customers, because eventually, I don't think our customers do not want to deal with multiple vendors going through this process. It's because it's already complex. So they need a single vendor strategy to kind of address this transformation, and Amagi does provide it today.
Terrence also asks, wants to know whether Amagi auto-scales to global video requirements, and if so, what's the maximum bandwidth that you support?
Again, auto-scaling is a very subjective, it's very dependent on what we're trying to accomplish. For playouts, we run almost close to 5,000 plus channels today as a company on public cloud infrastructure. So that's sort of the scale at which we run is extremely high today. And obviously, we're also distributing content to millions and hundreds of millions of customers today across the globe in terms of defined content. So the concurrencies that we support today are in millions, not in tens of millions yet, but in millions that we do support today as a company. And we do take in a lot of the sports and news, and a lot of this content go through an Amagi infrastructure today from a criticality standpoint.
Terrence, thanks for those questions. I'm going to get back to my list here. If we step back to where we were talking about running in parallel, immediately that brought to mind the concept of disaster recovery. I could see how a parallel playout workflow taking advantage of virtualization and your heavy metal or channel in a box, whatever your solution is, I could see how the virtualized version in that scenario could be used for disaster recovery. What's the latest in disaster recovery?
I think disaster recovery is going through a phase of because given its virtualized infrastructure that you're talking about, you could do multiple flavors of disaster recovery. You could do again in a cloud sort of model where you can actually bring in your infrastructure on demand. Our customers are looking at three different options. One is what we call as a either it's cold, warm, or really hot disaster recovery models. Hot is exactly right. You're running everything in parallel to what you have in on-prem. It's kind of a 1+1, literally, in that sense, fundamentally, and it's completely live 24/7 that you're running. And there are cold infrastructure, which is on the reverse end, where you have nothing available, no infrastructure available. But obviously, when something goes down, it takes at least, for example, depending on the infrastructure, it could be a few minutes to an hour where you're bringing the infrastructure up, which is like it's the lowest cost option, but obviously there's a big delay in the whole system. And then there is obviously something in the interim, which is called the warm model, where you've cached all the storage content, everything is ready, except for the core playout infrastructure, which has not been brought up. So the playout engine is not running, which is one of the most expensive part of your system. There is a thin layer of software and compute that's running, but the moment you want it, you're able to kind of bring it up. In a few minutes, you're up and running across hundreds of channels that you want to get to. That's a warm model. And again, our customers are picking and choosing what do you want to really look at. And these are three distinct options depending on the resiliency needs that you have, as well as what's uptime that you're looking to handle from a DR standpoint.
Going back a little bit, you mentioned some of the reasons why broadcasters are choosing a virtualized model these days, and you mentioned that they may be at the end of life of their existing hardware model for playout. Maybe there are financial reasons. What is it? A broad swath of reasons, or what are the major reasons? Or there's few. They're just the major reasons why they're making this move at this time.
The distinct reasons, Phil, that we've looked at, and again, this is very consistent across all the customers, is I think the world of media, as we all know, is going through a transformation. I think a lot of the broadcasters who've been in the traditional satellite and cable distribution realm are definitely seeing streaming as an option, which is starting to really evolve as well. So all our customers pretty much singularly are looking to have a unified operating environment as the transformation happens into a digital linear experience that's starting to happen for all of us. And when I say digital linear experience, there's a nuance that's starting to happen is, it's like 2-3 years back, I think most of them were having or owned and operated direct-to-consumer apps of their own, as well as obviously the cable and satellite distribution was the two-pronged strategy they looked at. But now I'm seeing most of the TV content owners starting to look at what I call an omni-channel strategy, essentially wanting to take their content, but to many, many destinations in non-exclusive fashions and across the different platforms and service providers through which they can actually reach consumers, because you want to monetize their content across all different platforms that you can actually get to. In that context that you're trying to look at, you want a unified operating environment across your broadcast, your OTT, your own window platforms to bring it to, I don't know, FAST, or you want to bring it to third-party content destinations that you want to bring it to. All of that, you want to really manage it through a single unified environment. That's one big driver that we see, which is driving a change in terms of, hey, can I really build a modern tech stack which can kind of help me through this transformation? Because some of it's going to be targeted advertising at a personalized level. Some of it's going to be local advertising. Some of it's going to be really burnt advertising on your broadcast streams. So all these workflows have to be meshed together in a very seamless fashion so that your operating environments and your operators do not get worried about the complexity, but they are able to manage their operations in a very seamless fashion. That's one aspect of what we see as a customer looking at it. The second aspect, which is super interesting that's happening, is also the business dynamics are changing for our customers. Customers, where are they going to make the revenue from? Where are the top lines coming from? All of that's changing. And if you look at it in the world of, if you look at sports, or sports is a very, very dynamic environment. I'm buying rights pretty much, I don't know, effectively in weeks or even few months before. How do I kind of stand up infrastructure that I can actually bring it up in a dynamic fashion? Virtualized environments are super easy for you to kind of programmatically bring up your playout engines much faster. We have customers who go stand up a linear channel in few hours, not even in days these days. So that's the speed at which you can actually get things done. It could be for pop-up channels that you want to do. You want to do single live events. Obviously, it's a few minutes that you're actually bringing it up only for that particular 90-minute game or 120-minute game that you're looking at, and spin it down. So these are newer capabilities that our customers are looking at because the business dynamics have changed, and the virtualized environments are a way to mimic your dynamism of the business on the tech infrastructure so that you're able to programmatically and automatically manage all of this. And your cost structure is very, very tied to the business cost structures that you have. That is, if your business doesn't make sense, you can spin it down. The whole infrastructure, you're not put a lot of capex up front, for example. Those are the big benefits, Phil, that we're seeing, what our customers are seeing today.
So you mentioned business dynamics, and in speaking with some broadcasters that are publicly traded companies, I've noticed that whenever it comes to anything that's virtualized, there's always this concern about OpEx versus CapEx. Obviously, OpEx is attractive in many respects, but on with these publicly traded companies, they know how to manage the expensing of this capital equipment, and it doesn't reflect poorly in their earnings reports, essentially, rather than having all this operational expense show up, consistently. Have you encountered that concern, and if so, how is that being addressed?
Absolutely, Phil. And this is an important concern from the CFO departments, right? So actually, there are a couple of concerns, Phil, but I'll kind of address your concern. That this is a classic concern for AV, because if it is CapEx, it is below the EBITDA line, which essentially means that I'm looking at it as more of a depreciating asset over time. And it's below the EBITDA so that I don't really change the economics of my business dramatically, at least above the EBITDA line. The moment you bring it into OpEx, it comes above the line, which essentially means that I have to really report it almost on a periodic basis, which kind of drives the EBITDA, the outlook of what it is. Obviously, the money is the same, but eventually the EBITDA outlook looks different than the net income outlook. So this is a big challenge, for example. There is an education cycle that's going through the process. What we've seen, the easiest way to solve problems for our customers is that we continue to look and feel like CapEx for them. So they are actually spending the money up front, although they're getting a virtualized infrastructure. So it's virtualized, it's on demand available. So you buy it almost like you buy abstract units of physical compute, right? In this case, for example, you're buying playout hours, if you will, or equivalents like that, which essentially is a CapEx-like investment for you. But as a vendor, we provide you the flexibility of moving that to what you want from a compute standpoint and how you want to address it. So we've seen where we've done for large customers, where we've done, they almost expense it like a CapEx, although it is actually available as the dynamism of the systems and everything else is available for them, capped to an extent of the compute that they paid for. So those are flexible models in terms of the financial models that are evolving fundamentally to help this particular issue specifically for our customers today.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go dive back into the tech here for a moment because our next question comes from Matt Mora, and Matt asks, so the pass-through of the video decoding on virtual machines generally causes a lot of overhead. How does your product alleviate this issue?
The definition, again, I'm not able to clearly understand what the overhead definition is here. And I think I understand. I'm trying to kind of answer this question. Is if you look at it, again, if you look at virtualization infrastructure, for example, it's exactly akin to what you have in the hardware a lot of ways, in some sense. Today, if you look at it, encode, decode, capabilities have become super efficient on virtualized environments. Today on VMs, we have super efficient codecs that are available that handles it. Specifically for large broadcasters and enterprise stuff, we're seeing this whole evolution of TRO7, which is a JPEG XS mesh codec model that dramatically reduces latencies and overheads to some extent because we're able to pull in content, pass it through completely in a mesh codec format, which essentially means that you're really near uncompressed. You're not encoding, decoding every time. And only when you finish all your playout aspects, the final downstream, you encode it once, either through a StatMux or otherwise, and you feed it back into the network. So by doing that, you're dramatically creating less overhead in terms of compute because you're actually going in a mesh codec environment, which is very, very resilient, both in terms of the quality as well as being able to give you a low latency solution, and compute is lower. Obviously, network is higher, but in virtualized infrastructure or even public clouds environments today, network is a lot of bandwidth available today to run these sort of capabilities at scale without having to worry about it. That's what we see.
Terrence Lowe asks, a common concern that customers have with migrating to virtualized clouds is cost. Are there any stats that you can share in general regarding total cost of ownership of virtualized playout versus more conventional methods of playout? And
So
is there,
overall
and just,
TCO.
excuse me, just let me add one other thing. I should, that's another important part. Is there, what's the long-term play? Is there a point where the customers realize that the savings are so great from a virtualized approach that any other traditional source of playout just doesn't make sense?
I think, again, TCO needs to be looked at it holistically, Phil. And again, our customers have gone through that process very, very with a fine comb, literally, right? So in terms of doing this, I think the fundamental fallacy in trying to really say, hey, here is a playout on my hardware running on my system, and I really map it apples to apples to what's happening on the cloud. Essentially, there is a challenge in terms of how you see it. How our customers have looked at it is it's not only hardware cost, data center cost, air conditioning cost, operator costs, really IT costs in terms of what you need to do from a management and maintenance standpoint. If you look at all of that and look at your business dynamic needs in terms of cost of real estate, for example, there are customers of ours who are shutting down real estate because they're going to move everything to the cloud and run it completely in a remote fashion, for example. The benefits has to be looked at it much more holistically. And our customers have seen anywhere from 30 to 70% savings, depending on who you are and where are you in terms of your complexities. That's the sort of level of savings that our customers are seeing fundamentally. But you need to look at it holistically, not looking at taking a playout engine to a playout engine. That's essentially not the way to look at it, but look at it holistically because you're going to shut down your data center. You don't need your data centers, literally. That means there's a lot of cost elements in not only just the servers, but really the rack units, the power that you have, the air conditioning that you do, the data center IT folks that you need, and the real estate. You need to look at it holistically. That's what our customers have really, and obviously comes the flexibility of mimicking your business environments. That's huge, pure magic in terms of the orchestration that you can actually do with that systems. That's advantage that our customers see.
So is it difficult for a virtualized playout solution like yours or any to support new streaming opportunities that a traditional linear broadcaster may want to launch for the first time or is new to in general, and their traditional linear over-the-air television service at the same time?
It's actually on the contrary, Phil. It's actually the most easiest way to do it because obviously it's software. You trigger things up very fast, right? So, for example, just to give you, a lot of our customers who come want to do fast channels. They're spinning up in few days, right? So you have your content on the storage buckets, then you're really pretty much ready to go, and you're able to build it extremely fast. So most of our customers are able to kind of quickly get their jobs done and then get it out. In fact, I think the virtualized environments are really lending itself very good for rapid bringing up content and bringing down things, right? So that's advantage, I think. So unlike hardware, it's extremely amenable. It's just programmatic. With the click of a button, you're able to spin up and spin down things. I think that's the beauty of the whole system.
We have a couple more viewer questions, this time from Seth Pierce. First, Seth wants to know where Amagi's located. And then if you would also address this, he said he's heard a bit about your analytic products, and he was hoping that you might be able to discuss what types of monitoring and dashboards you make available.
Okay. So first is Amagi is a global media technology company. Obviously, our front end and from a headquarters standpoint is New York, and we have people in all across the US. US is our largest market. We have presence in the EMEA region. We have office in London. We have office in New York. We have an office in LA. In that particular context in EMEA, we have people in Germany, France. We have from a European context. We have people in Middle East, and India is a development center. In India, we have one of the development centers in Bangalore, which is in India, it's our southern part of the country, where we have the core dev teams here. We have a couple of other development centers in Croatia and in Poland, where this. So we have possibly one of the largest media tech engineering teams in the world. Almost close to 500 people working every day on virtualized playout and all of the media platforms that we talk about. We have a monitoring and a network operating center in both in Delhi, which is for northern part of India, as well as in London, where we do it for our EMEA customers today, for example. We have office in Singapore, primarily catering to the region there, and we have sales teams in Australia. So we are global. We serve almost 40 plus countries today. It's prime time every time at Amagi because something is happening somewhere fundamentally. And from a monitoring standpoint, as a company, if you look at it, we do enable our customers to use our managed offering. Essentially, we run the NOC for some of them. And again, it's a very hybrid approach. So customers who need it can actually take that service, or they can just buy pure technology from Amagi. So we have provided those two options. And as part of it, I think given we kind of run our own monitoring, we built a fairly sophisticated infrastructure from a monitoring, analytics, and metering standpoint, which we use today for our own stuff, which we also provide to our customers so that they can do the monitoring and the metrics gathering and the analytics on the whole uptime of the system and be able to manage it. We continue to execute and actually building newer and newer capabilities, thanks to obviously with the Gen AI and others. There's a lot more to do in terms of monitoring, which can actually become much more smarter and better. It's a separate topic in itself that we should speak sometime. But the idea is that I think we'll continue to innovate, building these tools fundamentally to drive an end-to-end consummate experience for our content owners and for the TV channels.
I think you addressed this to a certain degree earlier, but I just want to circle back to the concept of not all channels are the same. Is virtualized playout ready for not just the simpler sorts of channel demands, but also demands of the most sophisticated channels that are on the air today? And if so, could you give us a few examples?
Absolutely. I think, again, look at it from 3-4 years back to what it is today. It's a dramatic improvement in what the potential sort of channels and events that you want to run. I think we are today, as we speak, are running Olympics live for all of the US content is actually passing through an Amagi system at some point in time today, right? And that's like it's the resiliency needs there and the low latency needs are extremely punishing from a broadcast standpoint. Literally, we're doing it on JPEG XS, we're doing it on 1+1 full reliable multi-regional capabilities so that you're actually having multi-regions. You're having butterfly streams coming across both parts of across the country today in the US, and we're actually doing the switching on the cloud and actually building that capability. These are almost 5 to 6 nines reliabilities that we're actually providing to our customers on one end. Obviously, it has a lot more expense in terms of egresses that you're building, as well as the whole the resiliences you're building in terms of the redundant infrastructure that you're providing, for example. 2, a smaller scale channel, and you're running a channel which is a fast channel or even a tier 4 channel. You could run it at 1+0 or even a 1+1 in a single location, for example. These are at a channel level or a 24/7 level that you're actually doing it. But I think the beauty of this whole system is also the orchestration that you could do almost on a per event basis, for example. Just to give you context, we are working with lots of customers who are evolving single live events. The idea is to be able to dynamically bring up and bring down the infrastructure only for that specific event that you have. And obviously, Olympics is a great kind of opportunity For example, we have customers who are only bringing up the infrastructure only during Olympics, running thousands of hours of different games simultaneously for their customers, taking it to the direct-to-consumer apps. The moment Olympics gets completed, they shut down the whole infrastructure. It comes to zero, literally. And that's the beauty of those infrastructures that we can actually provide. So that orchestration is already available, and we have people using it across tens of thousands of hours on a per-month basis today already. That's one aspect of the orchestration. The evolving orchestration that we see, Phil, which is much more exciting for me and which we're not yet there, and this is the conversation we're having with customers, is should every channel have the same resiliency across all points in time of the lifetime of the channel? For example, 2 a.m. in the morning, do you want to have the same resilience that you need in the prime time, for example? The whole virtualization infrastructure, and obviously specifically on a public cloud, you could spin it up and spin it down so that your infrastructure can actually be able to scale to the redundancy and the resilience needs at each point in time, for example. That's the next step in this whole evolution, Phil, that's starting to happen. We're already engaging with customers going through that particular conversations to kind of do it, because the sophistication of the infrastructure and the orchestration that you can do on it is completely flexible. And that's the power of the platform that we think our customers are starting to really look to enable as we move forward.
So far we focused on Playout, but Playout's closely tied to master control and traffic. Are those aspects of the workflow being virtualized as well?
Absolutely. So master control is completely virtualized for all our customers. And again, master control is non-trivial because the operators have to take very fast action. And for every action, you want to get back the tactile feedback in terms of your video switching or a graphics embed that you're trying to do. All those needs has to come back. Amagi's kind of worked with it to tune the systems to have the lowest latency, where in few hundreds of milliseconds, you're able to get the response back and you're able to feed it. It almost looks like you're working on a local machine, which is not, because it's actually working across thousands of miles away. So these have been solved already from a master control standpoint. So master control is absolutely on the cloud today for all our customers, and we run it completely truly on a native environment today. So that's the reality. Traffic systems could be a mixed bag today because people using on-prem traffic systems continue to do it. Amagi on our own have built a scheduling system, primarily not for really larger, complex traffic capabilities, but literally for, again, the advertising world is changing. Everything's becoming programmatic. So the old traffic model, ad traffic model is actually going away. And all of that's getting into ad servers, which are actually managing campaigns and making it all dynamic for us. So programmatic integrations is the way to go for the future in terms of including even for a linear content in a broadcast world, it's going to be programmatic through vast calls, not through a ad traffic system in the future. Again, that's just the transformation that's happening in the industry as we speak.
That was actually the next question on my list, the impact of programmatic advertising on broadcast in general when it comes to Playout. And so can you elaborate a little bit on Amagi supported server-side calls to ad servers and insertion of advertising and where that capability stands today and where it's headed?
Absolutely. So a couple of things, Phil. If you look at it from our customers, for example, customers who are getting into any sort of digital linear experiences, either to their owned and operated platforms or to fast platforms or any other platform, for example, we have a server-side ad insertion infrastructure, which allows them to dynamically and at the individual level insert different advertising for each of the consumers. So almost on an individual level that you can do today. And this is a very highly concurrent, extremely scalable platform. It does billions of impressions today and opportunities that it actually addresses today on a per month basis today already. So it's a very, very scaled out system that exists today, for example. These are things which connect back to ad servers, to demand side capabilities and supply side exchanges that you want, ad exchanges you want. We connect to all of those capabilities and actually provide it as an end-to-end capability for our customers in the digital space, digital news space. If you come to the broadcast aspect of it, CloudPort, which is our flagship Playout platform, has abilities to connect with server-side insertion as a server-side capability where it can actually connect to ad servers, which can actually provide programmatic delivery of linear traditional advertising as well. So that's an adapter that's available, which you can actually bring on board as well. So there are two ways to do it. One is to really do it on the burn it in as part of your broadcast feed, the advertising, or you do it at an individual level where you can do not only personalized video, but we also enable personalized in-content graphics as well, which is personalized at an individual level. So that's a very, very advanced system, which allows you to do that as well for digital linear experiences today.
On the linear broadcast side, another component of this is the whole as run sort of report to prove to advertisers that they really got what they paid for. How's that being handled in the virtualized side of playout and monitoring traffic and master control?
Okay, so I think as run is a critical part because we run a lot of tier 1 channels to tier 4. Every advertiser would love to see what they've kind of done. So the telecast certificate or the ASRAN logs become part of it's a contractual obligation of our customers to advertisers fundamentally. So Amagi's CloudPort is inbuilt with an ASRAN log service, which essentially provides you. And again, there are two modes that our customers use it. There are customers who do it almost at a show level. So when a show gets completed, an ASRAN log gets generated pretty much in near real time as the show gets completed. So that's like you can just kind of get posted with an ASRAN log almost as the end of a show. And show is a collection of assets and advertising breaks that you have. And either it's a live event or a file-based assets that you're playing. And eventually it actually spits out an ASRAN log as soon as the show gets completed. Obviously, you have end of the day reports as well, which pretty much kind of aggregate all the shows together and provide you almost on a broadcast day basis. All of this is really, these are feature sets which have been baked into the system much ahead of time. And this is all first class features of the product.
Mm-hmm. Terrence Lowe has another great question here. AI is a hot topic these days. What is Amagi, your company's AI strategy? And do you have any research there for using AI for any sort of optimization or other innovations?
Okay, that's a big topic and a seminar in itself that we should do at some point in time. But again, folks, I think at Amagi, we've been investing in AI for the last 3 years. So it's not a new thing for us. And obviously, we've been tracking this, and a lot of the projects have been skunk works. We've not released major AI initiatives, and we don't want to be we don't do gimmicky stuff. We love to see how AI can actually add true value to our customers, either in reducing cost, improving operating efficiency, or maximizing revenue. It should be on those buckets. I think over the last 6 months, we've kind of starting to work with some of our early customers where we've identified specific user experiences mechanisms for AI, the AI models which can actually support it. I think we're seeing some tremendous progress on with our customers today in terms of some of these are in beta today with some of the closed betas that we're really doing with customers to kind of identify stuff. We will do some announcements at the end of the year. So we're not yet ready to kind of open up the kimono right now in terms of what we're trying to do. But the way we are taking it is a more broad-based strategy. It's going to be embedded as almost like a magic sauce across the workflow that we today support, starting from live production on one side till the ad insertion on the other side, master controls, production control systems to really how we do handle our content management, scheduling, planning systems. All of that is going to see a shade of AI magic, if you will, a touch of a pixie dust there that we're going to put in so that you're going to see that. That's the future of how we see this. I'm not going to disclose a lot more on that, but that's the future of how we see this really progressing.
I'm not asking you to pre-announce anything here as it relates to AI, but it just so happens that this next question is about master control side of the business, and maybe AI could play in here, maybe not. But there are a lot of things on a linear channel that master control has to handle. EAS, for instance, graphics, overlays, interrupting scheduled program feeds with live content when breaking news happens, spot replacement, closed captions, and even in monitoring the signal. So
it's true.
Is virtualized master control up to those tasks?
Absolutely, yes. Today, it is dynamic enough for our customers where master control is very, very extensive in terms of being able to switch to things. And we have local news stations in the US running on Amagi platforms today, right? So these are really tier 1 stations that are running. And these are local stations, local terrestrial stations that are running. they need very dynamic environments. And today at Amagi, obviously, we've kind of spent the last 10 years building a virtualized playout. So we've had the most amount of time we've spent building it natively. And we're not a lift and shift system. It's been built from scratch. All the code base was built for an orchestrated virtualized environment from day one. And we've built in all this dynamism today, Phil. Absolutely. You can run a very complex master control with all the bells and whistles that you're talking about on cloud today. And that's all available.
As channel count goes up for linear broadcasters, for instance, or for anyone for that matter, the monitoring load becomes heavier in master control, I would imagine. And you're addressing that. I don't want to pigeonhole you into the AI/ML discussion, but if you maybe that might make sense. But
there are multiple. Yes, Phil. Actually, I think it is. See, there's again. I wouldn't only term it as AI. There are a bunch of things such as automations. Some of them are obviously ML intelligence, because ML is a much more overhyped word today in terms of AI/ML. But we are kind of working on some of those modules to clearly bring monitoring costs dramatically low. I truly believe the future is not eyes on glass for monitoring, and there's no good reason. Even a few years back, I don't think there was a need for eyes on glass. Leave the AI/ML hype; it was not needed. But with new technologies, new automation, and new machine learning models and intelligence that's available, we're building things where you might not need a human to look at eyes on glass as a mechanism to do it. Suffice to say, that's including some of the master control automation as well, but I'll leave it at it.
I would imagine that there's some cultural or human sorts of concerns when it comes to this as well. And, how comfortable are broadcasters with turning that important function, that monitoring function, over to something where they don't have a human being there, because that's really an important part of their cash register.
Absolutely, it is. But again, this is something that I think as humans we have to get comfort with machines. I think everybody's going through that transformation. Could be, and across every industry. So it's not nothing new to broadcasters. Every industry is going through it. Think about financial folks doing trading for multi-million-dollar trades today, and it's going to be done by AI tomorrow. It's scary enough to do. If that's the wrong trade, what happens? The damage could be much higher. Here, at least, it's post-facto monitoring. Yes, it's important, it's critical, but again, you're going to see these things percolating into the systems. But I think there is a step approach of doing things. In fact, if you look at it, even today, I think eyes on glass might not be the best and the most efficient way to monitor, because humans have our own limitations, if you will. Machines don't, and a lot of things machines can do with some augmentation. I would see human augmentation not going away, but we can actually bring down the cost of human operations in terms of efficiencies that we can actually bring on board. I think that's the first step in this equation, rather than trying to obviate everything on day one. That's the way I would see it.
Doran Schmidt has a question for you. Do you see the future moving towards programmatic programming, working similar to server-side ad insertion?
We have already done that, Phil. In fact, we have customers in trial which actually are programmatically creating schedules, and it's done by machines today already. Automated scheduling systems which actually schedules it based on social signals, based on content metadata, based on the analytics from the viewing behaviors. It is already starting to do that. We are in trials with customers already on those sort of capabilities. So it's not a future; it's actually a percent. Literally, it's happening right now.
So there seems to be perhaps some opportunity to consolidate workflows, perhaps master control, production control. I was wondering what your thoughts are about that and how that plays out in the whole virtualized space.
Absolutely, Phil. One of the conversations that, again, if you look at the world of physical hardware, there was a good reason why we had to isolate a PCR and an MCR as two distinctly different activities to some extent. I think given the world is crashing to some extent, and given the evolution of single live events and then really on-demand events coming up and going down, the lines are getting blurred in what's a PCR and what's an MCR. If you look at it, think about the advertising load. MCR used to handle a lot of the advertising piece of the puzzle. That's becoming programmatic. that's moving into server-side ad insertion models, personalized advertising models, which essentially means that it's going to be completely automated. Now, the act of identifying ad breaks is the only MCR value add that you're going to do. That's eventually going to be connected to the PC, the production control room eventually, because that's one step away from that fundamentally. So we're seeing the blurring of lines, and already we have customers who are starting to look at saying, can I have a single composition engine across my PCR, MCR space as a single continuum so that my infrastructure at the bottom is exactly the same. And now I have multiple renditions of how my operators can look at it and actually play with things. So for example, we're building systems which are where it could be talent-driven production. That essentially the same talent who's actually live can actually produce their content themselves, literally, and even press ad breaks through which actually they can actually get ad breaks done. So it's like almost like a shrunk MCR, PCR system, which pretty much the talent can run themselves on one extreme, to where you have production and master control running on a single composition engine at the back end, but you can have multiple screens for somebody to manage audio, somebody to manage graphics, somebody to manage video, replays. You can kind of look at very, very complex infrastructure. Those are the evolutions that's happening, Phil. So we're seeing these lines getting blurred. In fact, I don't think it'll be meaningless to even call master control or production control in the future, whereas we want to kind of have a fluid system, which can kind of manage different configurations so that we're able to manage different things, different events, and you're orchestrating these systems depending on the needs that you have for those specific events.
So, are there any potential risks in consolidating these operations, and what red flags should broadcasters look out for?
One of the things it's super important, right? So anyway, you don't want to put all the eggs in a single basket from an infrastructure standpoint, which has always been even if it's a data center, you would like to have physically different places where you want to run your data centers, for example. That's been a typical norm. What the public cloud infrastructure is lending to today is a super resilient, world-class, secure infrastructure, which is just of extreme value for our customers today. The advantage is if you're running it, let's say, multi-region, even in multiple different countries, for example, that you could run, what that brings is a significantly, the uptime is dramatically high that you can actually bring on board because these are infrastructure. And the worldview of our customers going forward is really even a hybrid cloud multi-region infrastructure, for example. It's more complex in terms of architecture, but that's the future of how our customers are looking at it. This essentially is I could run one cloud provider in one region, and another region I can run completely another cloud provider. So I have resilience on all of the infrastructure is completely resilient that I'm able to do it. Those are the future elements that we see. So I think by definition, the public cloud and the billions of dollars of investment that's going into those infrastructures and the ton of software that's happening, I think that's the best way of building resilience over the future, right? So literally doing it in-house doesn't make sense over time because of the investments needed. I think this is the directional stuff that I see, which can dramatically improve the resilience for our customers going forward.
So we have another question from the audience. Doran Schmidt asked, do you see the future moving towards, I think I asked you this. I apologize. I already asked Doran's question. So I'll take this opportunity to remind our viewers that we're coming down to the last few minutes. If you have any other questions, this would be a good time to ask them. But we'll just go back to my list then. I'd like you to talk a little bit about Amagi's solution now. You've given us kind of the high-level view of virtualized playout, but why don't you tell us a little bit about CloudPort now?
Okay, so CloudPort is Amagi's flagship playout platform. And when I call it a platform, it essentially means that starting from ingesting your content, QCing your content, if it's file-based, bringing in live content from an ingest standpoint into the system, managing upscaling, downscaling, changing formats, to doing all your QC checks in terms of your blacks and subtitling your content or captioning your content through automatic systems, both in live and then file-based content. We bring in all of this. You want to build in delay systems, integrations with multiple scheduling systems. We have MOS integrations to bring all of that capability as part of the capability that could bring in. Then obviously you have a very sophisticated automation infrastructure. You have a master control interface through which our customers can actually, our operations teams can actually run the whole system. We have a sophisticated playout engine which addresses all different formats in terms of video up to 4K, all of the Ultra HD with all tone mapping capabilities embedded. Audio sources, we do Nielsen tracking, we do multiple audios up to 16 audio tracks across, we do Dolby Atmos to every other Dolby standard that we can think of fundamentally from a system standpoint. So it's a fairly sophisticated entity from a playout standpoint that's been built. Now, post playout, and again, this supports MES codec input, output, it supports HEVC, it supports the standard AVC mechanisms that you can bring, both bringing in and bringing out content that you can actually address, for example. Post the playout engine is mechanisms of switching fabrics that we built, which allows you to switch multiple different streams coming from different multiple playout engines that you can actually bring on board. These are to build redundancy capabilities, for example. We have synchronization systems between playouts across multi-region capabilities. Both our data stores are synchronized, operator controls are synchronized across multiple cloud. There is a single press of a button on an operator on a single interface actually triggers two playout engines and two controls that you can actually do. We supported ganging systems. That essentially means that you can actually gang your playouts and actually run for multi-region, localized feeds, for example. All of that's embedded. In graphics, we've expanded it to complete HTML5 advanced graphics. You can bring in streams like NDI streams from the likes of WizRT and others and actually bring in complex graphic capabilities into the system. We have our own graphics description language through which you can actually build your graphics. So it's a platform. It's not a playout engine alone, but a complete end-to-end capability. And then it has the monitoring and the infrastructure that comes along as well. So it's it's a full end-to-end capability that we provide for our customers today.
You brought up the whole concept of interface, and there are many broadcasters who have been working for decades, and systems have changed over the years, but there's some basic touch points that they're familiar with when it comes to interfaces. Is there a need to maintain those sorts of control services for this existing workforce, or is it just going to be a matter of, okay, now we're moving over to these new virtualized solutions and you're going to be pointing and clicking and dragging and dropping and things like that?
No, it's going to be a kind of a transition, Phil. At least the way we see this is because not that all of your tooling there are going to be environments that are going to be hybrid. That is, you're running some on-prem, some on cloud, including same workflow chains we're seeing. For example, our customers who are downlinking from the cloud and eventually uplinking satellite, for example, might have their StatMux and the conditional access systems, for example, on-prem to start with. You don't need everything to be on cloud today, for example. Those are scenarios where you're going to see this hybrid environment starting to happen over time. So interfaces do matter. The standards and protocols that's available do matter in terms of interfacing with things. So you are going to see a world where there's a transformation years, if not, hopefully it's not a decade, but years, that you're going to see where there's going to be some hardware, some software components which have to talk to each other. And the standardized protocols and interfaces that's been evolved in the industry are going to keep us in good stead if you're able to kind of manage it across a network environment, as remote as between the cloud and the stuff. So that's the future of how we see this whole thing moving forward.
Well, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank our guest, Baskar Subramanian, I hope I didn't mess that up, for being here today and offering your unique insights into where virtualized playout and virtualized master control and the whole topic, where all this is headed. I also want to thank you for being here and submitting your questions. There were some great questions today. And before we go, it's time for our prize giveaway. Today's winner of a $250 Amazon gift card is Owen Jennings from Georgia. Our team will be in touch after the webinar. I'm Phil Kurz. Goodbye.